so far to harbor life. Like it or not, for the moment, the Earth is where we make our stand.
I love me some video games. Always have. I'm one of those people who will eternally bang on the games are art drum because quite frankly, they are. And not only are video games a form of art, but like many other art forms, they can teach you things. When I was a child, I learned about the technology and battle strategies of the Middle Ages through the Age of Empires games. Those games even had campaign storylines that taught me about Joan of Arc, Genghis Khan, and Saladin, a Muslim military leader during the Crusades. A little later, I learned the basics of aviation with flight simulators that would demonstrate the complex world of taking off, landing, patrolling, mid-air refueling, and identifying unknown aircraft. Of course, it didn't turn me into a fighter pilot, but it gave me an appreciation for the world of aviation and how very complicated all of it actually was. More recently in my life, games like Kerbal Space Program have taught me more about orbital mechanics and rocket design, and another game, the subject of this video, achieves a number of things that I would consider educational in a very unique way. Jurassic Park is, in my opinion, a perfect movie. Now when I say a perfect movie, I don't mean a film with zero faults. A perfect movie to me is a movie that achieves exactly what it set out to do without diverting from that path or taking any significant shortcuts. Jurassic Park does that. It is, in its first half, a film about exploration and wonder, with serious questions about trying to mix the distant past with the present day.
I don't think you're giving us our due credit. Our scientists have done things which nobody's ever done before.
Yeah, but your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should.
In its second half, it becomes a dramatic horror story, taking its fantastical prehistoric setting and flipping the odds against our protagonists. Upon release, Jurassic Park was also seen as an educational movie. It was one of the first movies to popularize the recently discovered connection between dinosaurs and modern birds.
Do you really think that dinosaurs turned into birds? And that's where they all went?
Well, a few species may have evolved along those lines.
Prior to this, dinosaurs in films have been depicted as slow, lumbering, cold-blooded reptiles. Jurassic Park instead showed them as very fast and bird-like, particularly in the appearances of Gallimimus and the Velociraptor, despite the latter of the two being highly fictionalized from the truth. Dinosaurs began to look a lot more like birds after that movie was released. As the series progressed, it mostly went downhill, with only one thing of note. The raptors in Jurassic Park 3 featured quill-like proto-feathers on their heads. While this was still far from what an actual raptor looked like, it was a step in the right direction. Once the series was rebooted in 2015, the science took an even further step backward with the absurd introduction of hybrid dinosaurs. But we did get one sort of gem out of it all: Jurassic World Evolution. JWE is a park management game in the same vein as games like SimCity or Zoo Tycoon. Having grew up with Roller Coaster Tycoon games, I was fully prepared for this. If you've never played a game like this before, allow me to explain the basics. You design and build a park, create attractions, in this case paddocks of dinosaurs, and create revenue to further expand the parks. With JWE, the primary difficulties come in balancing guest satisfaction, dinosaur satisfaction, and the needs of 3 divisions that demand your attention through contracts. They even get super pissy if you favor one over another. Imagine a security division that actively poisons the animals in the zoo because they're not getting enough contracts completed. So, onto the topic proper. What does JWE do correctly? Well, in short, the herbivores. The first dinosaur you're able to release in the game is Struthiomimus, meaning ostrich mimic. They were a genus of long-legged bipedal omnivores with toothless beaks. Let me get the obvious fault out of the way first. They should have done this with Jurassic World, but the JP franchise simply doesn't do feathered dinosaurs. The knowledge that many dinosaurs likely had feathers came around the time the first movie was being made, and wasn't widely accepted during its production. Once the likelihood of feathers was shown to the world, the franchise, or rather big fans of the franchise, introduced a loose excuse. In the first film, it's explained that the park's dinosaurs used frog genes to fill in the genome gap, and some say this is why the franchise's dinosaurs lack feathers. It doesn't really work for me, but fine, let's just go with it.
Oh, there it is.
So with all that being said, Struthiomimus should have feathers. Other than that, its appearance is pretty true to our understanding of what it really looked like. Its bird-like nature is then reinforced with the sounds it makes, which sound pretty clearly inspired by ostrich vocalizations. Just take a listen.
Right up here.
Everything about the behavior of Struthiomimus, which you will quickly get a group of because they have a high tolerance for other dinosaurs being around them, screams bird. They walk like an ostrich, or a flamingo, or a cassowary. In fact, the first time I saw this video of a giant cassowary following a woman on the beach, all I could think of was that a modern-day dinosaur was stepping toward her.
Do I stop? Help me.
As you progress through the game, you will unlock more members of the Ornithomimus family, the Gallimimus, meaning chicken mimic, and Archaeornithomimus, meaning ancient bird mimic. When you get a bunch of these dinosaurs together, all I can see is a pen of oversized chickens. Another place the game succeeds is with members of the Hadrosaurid family. These are the so-called duck-billed dinosaurs, large herbivores such as Edmontosaurus, Corythosaurus, and likely the most well-known, Parasaurolophus. These animals were likely grazers, evolved to consume vegetation low to the ground based on what we know about their teeth. We actually know a fair amount about them due to the number of high-quality fossil specimens. In fact, the first identified family of dinosaurs was hadrosaurs, coming from the teeth of what Joseph Leidy identified as a trachodon, though this is a somewhat dubious species as the teeth may have come from both hadrosaurs and ceratopsids. Anyway, what do we know about hadrosaurs? They were big, they were grazers, they cared for their young, and they most likely moved in herds. They were essentially the cows of the prehistoric days, and that's exactly what they look like in JWE. Their AI is programmed to have them move together in groups, and they will even ignore hunger or thirst until a few more animals also require food or water, and then they will move together to do so. It creates a sense of trying to create safety. More eyes can look in more directions at once, and more bodies carry more defensive force behind them. So, when you look at this particular paddock of hadrosaurs, tell me, do they look much different from a herd of particularly fancy-looking cows or buffalo? Now, what about carnivores? I'll be honest, this is where the game's science starts to fall apart. For instance, T-Rex is modeled directly after its movie appearances, instead of being adopted to look like what we know T-Rex probably did look like. Why? Because the JP T-Rex is awesome. It's fearsome, stylish, intimidating. To alter that icon, the literal icon of the franchise, would alienate all of their fans, so of course they kept it the same. That being said, have a look at the way T-Rex walks and runs. Tell me it doesn't look an awful lot like that cassowary I showed earlier. Some carnivore behaviors do evoke those of modern animals, most definitely. A good example, oddly enough, can be found in the game's velociraptors. Of course, we all know the truth about this. Velociraptors were in fact small, feathered, and essentially look like giant turkeys. But again, the JP raptors are an iconic thing of beauty. Sleek, clawed predators capable of complex strategy and social behavior. Why fix what isn't broken from an entertainment standpoint? So, what's right about the raptors in the game? Their behavior. They eat like a bird. Lacking the proper teeth for chewing, they instead tilt their heads back to swallow food whole. They hunt like birds. Compare this chicken killing a mouse to this raptor killing a goat. So my overall point here is that JWE does a very good job of normalizing dinosaurs. It makes many of them look much more believable by comparing them to modern day animals. Part of the reason I hate the dinosaurs are fake conspiracy is because it is true that dinosaurs are sensationalized quite often. But every now and then, you see a herd of parasaurs, and you can't help but think of some loud, crested cows. But where does the game truly fail? Honestly, with hybrids. I wish to the gods that the JP franchise would just drop the concept of mixing dinosaur genomes to create hybrids. It started, of course, with Indominus Rex in the 2015 film, and that thing did nothing to impress me. The very idea that a hybrid would be needed to maintain guest entertainment is rendered ridiculous by the fact that the movies even exist. If we brought dinosaurs back, it isn't going to take a few years for people to start getting bored of them. The hybrid trend continued with Indoraptor, which is a hybrid of a hybrid. Even more ridiculous. I fully lost interest when that dinosaur literally looked at the camera and winked at the audience. That, my friends, is what we call schlock.
Schlock! Yes!
JWE continues with the hybrid thing to an absolutely ridiculous degree. An expansion in the game allows you to open a park in a secret location with Dr. Henry Wu, the tertiary scientist from the first film who inexplicably turned into a comical mad scientist in the reboot. At this park, you're asked to create several hybrid dinosaurs. First, Ankylodocus, a hybrid of the armored Ankylosaurus and the sauropod Diplodocus. Immediately, my problems with it become evident. It's basically just a model of the game's Diplodocus with 3 added features. First, the head is made to more closely resemble Ankylosaurus. Why? What's the evolutionary advantage of that? None that I can see. Second, spikes are added to the creature's back. Again, why? First of all, Ankylosaurus didn't really have spikes. Some recreations suggest it, but the exact layout of its armored portions are not known. Second, Diplodocus didn't have spikes because it didn't need them. Sauropods found protection in their massive size, thick skin, and possibly their tails. They didn't really need to defend from attacks from above them because they were the biggest things around. Last but not least, the Diplodocus's tail is given the club of the Ankylosaurus, which I frankly find ridiculous. Sauropod tails were as long as they were in order to balance the animal's weight, and adding an enormous hunk of bone onto the end of it not only looks stupid, but would probably be incredibly impractical. You can even see it in the game. The tail animation of Diplodocus clearly does not account for this club, as it swings about wildly and makes the dinosaur near impossible to observe closely. The next hybrid is the Stegoceratops. Yep, the Stegoceratops, a combination of Stegosaurus and Triceratops. This one looks absolutely ridiculous. Nothing about Stegosaurus's head implies the gigantic horns this animal has, and once again, the tail balance is thrown off by the spiked club addition. This thing just looks awkward, and perfectly defines my problem with the idea of these hybrids. Every single aspect of a dinosaur's anatomy reflects specific evolutionary requirements that came from millions of years of work. To combine them willy-nilly creates a creature that doesn't know what it is or why it has half of the body parts that it has. To me, it just evokes an image of an abomination that would immediately want to die. Jurassic Park, stop with the hybrids. It's stupid. It's just stupid. Overall, though, Jurassic World Evolution is a pretty decent game. Like I said, many of the dinosaurs resemble real-world animals, and could work to educate children and make them realize there's nothing particularly fantastical about dinosaurs. They're just animals, and the game works pretty hard to show that. It's not the most complicated park simulator out there. For that, you want to play Planet Zoo. But it's a lot of fun if you're a fan of the adventure 65 million years in the making. If you like this video, please give it a like. If you want to see more, please subscribe to my channel, which is Dead Kennedy in Space. If you want to support me further, consider donating on Patreon or purchasing some of my work through Amazon or Teespring. Thank you, and I'll see you over the curve, Space Cowboys.
Live there, on the mote of dust. suspended in a sunbeam, in a vast cosmic arena.